My wife demanded a hall pass after cancer recovery and spent the night with her coworker even after I begged her not to. I served divorce papers, but she showed up everywhere refusing to accept it until her affair partner's wife exposed the shocking truth. Hi Reddit, I'm 38 and my wife Beverly is 39. We met in college back in 2002 and got married in 2005. For most of our time together, things were stable. She worked in marketing at a mid-sized firm. I worked in IT management. We have one son, Willie, who's 16 now. Beverly always handled things in her own way. She liked control over decisions, big and small. What we ate for dinner, where we went on vacation, how we spent weekends. I didn't mind much because she usually made good choices and I'm not someone who needs to be in charge of everything. Our life worked. We weren't the couple that went out every weekend or had a huge social circle, but we were content with routine. In March, Beverly started having irregular bleeding. She went to the doctor and they ran tests. The results came back as stage 1 endometrial cancer. The doctor said they caught it early. She needed a hysterectomy but the prognosis was good. The surgery happened in April. I took 2 weeks off work to be home with her during recovery. She stayed in bed most of the time, took her medication, and followed all the post-op instructions. By June, her follow-up appointments showed she was cancer-free. After the surgery, something shifted. Beverly started talking about how life was short and we needed to make the most of it. She signed up for a pottery class. Then she joined a book club. She started going to the gym 4 times a week instead of her usual once or twice. I thought it was good that she was finding new interests. The doctor had said some people react to cancer by making lifestyle changes, so this seemed normal. In July, she announced she wanted to go to Iceland. Just the 2 of us, no Willie. I said sure, and we booked a trip for September. She seemed excited about it in a way I hadn't seen in years. She bought new clothes for the trip, researched every restaurant and hiking trail, made a detailed itinerary. When we got back from Iceland, she immediately started planning another trip to Costa Rica for January. I noticed she was on her phone more than usual. She said the book club had a group chat that was very active. She also mentioned her work was busier because they were launching a new campaign. I didn't think much of it. She worked late a few nights in August. She went out for drinks with coworkers twice in September, which was unusual but not alarming. On October 12th, Beverly came home from work around 7 p.m. I was in the living room watching a game. She sat down next to me, muted the TV, and said she needed to talk. She told me she wanted to sleep with someone else. Just once. She said her perspective on life had changed after the cancer and she didn't want to have regrets. She said there was a guy at work, Mason, who was leaving the company in 2 weeks. She found him attractive and wanted to act on it before he left. I stared at her. I asked if she was serious. She said yes, completely serious. She said it wasn't about our marriage being bad or about me not being enough. It was about her needing to do something for herself. She said she was telling me because she respected me and didn't want to lie or sneak around. She called it being honest and giving me a choice in the matter. I told her no. Obviously no. She said she understood that might be my reaction, but she hoped I would think about it. She said she would be disappointed if I refused, and that disappointment might last a long time. She also said that if I said no, it would prove I was insecure and controlling. That phrase stuck with me. Insecure and controlling. As if not wanting your wife to sleep with another man was some kind of character flaw. I told her I didn't appreciate being manipulated. She said she wasn't manipulating anyone, she was just being honest about her needs. She went upstairs. I sat there for 2 hours. Willie came home from his friend's house around 9 p.m. and I pretended everything was fine. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Beverly came downstairs while I was making coffee. She said she had thought about it more and she didn't want to put the burden of the decision on me. She said she had already made up her mind. Mason's last day at the company was Friday, October 20th. His coworkers were throwing him a going-away party at a bar downtown. She had booked a hotel room near the bar. She said she was going to the party and she was going to spend the night with Mason. I asked if she was seriously telling me she was going to cheat on me in 8 days. She said it wasn't cheating if she told me about it beforehand. She said she hoped I would still be there when she got home on Saturday, but she understood if I needed space. She said we could talk about it after and she would answer any questions I had. Then she left for work. I called in sick. I sat at the kitchen table for most of the day. I thought about calling a lawyer but I didn't know what I would even say. I thought about packing my things and leaving but I didn't want to abandon Willie. I thought about confronting her again when she got home but I knew she had already made her decision. Over the next week, I barely spoke to her. She acted normal. She asked how my day was, talked about work, reminded me about Willie's parent-teacher conference. On Thursday night, I told her one more time that I didn't want her to do this. I told her if she went through with it, I wasn't sure I could stay married to her. She said she understood my feelings but this was something she needed to do. She said I would get over it eventually. She said we had too much history to throw away over one night. Friday, October 20th. She came home from work around 6 p.m. She showered and changed into a dress I'd never seen before. She did her makeup. She packed an overnight bag. I was sitting in the kitchen when she came downstairs. She asked if I wanted to say anything. I asked her not to go. She said she had to. She left at 7:30 p.m. I tried to watch TV but I couldn't focus. I tried to read but the words didn't make sense. Around 9 p.m., I texted her asking if she was really going to do this. She replied that she wasn't answering questions tonight and she'd see me tomorrow. I called her. She didn't pick up. I called again. She didn't pick up. At 10 p.m., I got in my car. I drove downtown to the bar she had mentioned. I parked across the street and waited. I don't know what I was trying to accomplish. Maybe I wanted to see if she was really there. Maybe I wanted to see who this Mason person was. Maybe I just couldn't sit at home anymore. Around 11:30 p.m., people started coming out of the bar. A group of about 8 people stood outside smoking and talking. One man stood in the center and everyone was hugging him and patting his back. I assumed that was Mason. He was shorter than me, probably 5 feet 7 inches. He was overweight and losing his hair. I watched him say goodbye to everyone. The group dispersed. Mason stood alone on the sidewalk. Then Beverly came out of the bar. She looked around, walked over to him, and took his hand. They walked down the street together toward the hotel. I followed them in my car. They went into the hotel lobby. I waited in the parking lot for 10 minutes, then I drove home. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights off. Around 3 a.m., Willie came downstairs for water and asked why I was awake. I told him I couldn't sleep. He went back to bed. At 7 a.m., I went upstairs. I took all of Beverly's clothes out of our bedroom closet and put them in the guest room. I took her toiletries from the bathroom and put them in the guest bathroom. I moved her nightstand items, her books, her laptop, everything. I changed the sheets on our bed. I took a shower. I sat on the bed and waited. She came home around 11 a.m. I heard her car in the driveway. I heard the front door open. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. She opened the bedroom door. She looked at me and asked what happened to her things. I told her I moved them to the guest room. She asked why. I told her she should find somewhere else to stay. She said we needed to talk about this. I said there was nothing to talk about. She asked if I was really going to throw away our marriage over this. I didn't answer. She said she didn't understand why I was being so dramatic. She said it was one night and it didn't mean anything. I told her to leave. She said this was her house too and she wasn't going anywhere. I got up and walked past her. I went downstairs, got in my car, and drove to my brother's place. He lived about 30 minutes away. I showed up at his door and told him I needed to stay there for a while. He let me in and didn't ask questions right away. I stayed at my brother's house for 3 days. Beverly called me 47 times. She left voicemails asking me to come home and talk. She sent texts saying she was sorry if she hurt me but we needed to work through this. On Monday, I went to work and told my boss I might need some time off soon. I didn't explain why. On Tuesday, I met with a divorce lawyer my brother recommended. The lawyer asked me to explain the situation. I told him everything. He took notes and said I had grounds for divorce based on adultery. He said Ohio requires a 1-year separation period unless there are specific circumstances. He said we could file and start the process. I signed the papers that day. On Wednesday, I went home while Beverly was at work. I packed more of my clothes and some personal items. I left a note on the kitchen table telling her she would be served with divorce papers soon. I went back to my brother's house. Beverly showed up at my brother's house on Thursday night. My brother answered the door and told her I didn't want to see her. She stood on the porch and yelled that I was being unreasonable. She said she made a mistake but I was overreacting. My brother closed the door. She stood outside for 20 minutes before she left. The divorce papers were served to her at work on Friday, October 27th. She called me immediately. She said she wasn't signing anything. She said we were not getting divorced. She said she would do whatever it took to fix this. I told her there was nothing to fix. I hung up. That weekend, Willie called me. He said his mom told him we were separating. He asked what happened. I told him his mother and I had different ideas about what marriage meant. He asked if we were getting divorced. I said yes. He asked if it was his fault. I told him no, this had nothing to do with him. He asked when I was coming home. I told him I didn't know. Update 1: the last few weeks have been a mess. Beverly refused to move out of the house even though it was owned by my parents before we got married and they transferred the deed to me when we married. My lawyer said we could force her out but it would take time. I stayed at my brother's place and went to the house when Beverly was at work to see Willie. Willie asked me several times why this was happening. He said his mom told him it was a misunderstanding. I didn't want to tell him the full truth so I just said that his mother and I had a disagreement we couldn't resolve. He pushed for more details. I told him his mother did something that broke my trust and I couldn't stay married to her. He asked if she cheated. I didn't answer. He took that as a yes. Willie stopped talking to Beverly for a few days. She called me and blamed me for turning him against her. I told her I didn't say anything that wasn't true. She said I was ruining their relationship. I hung up. 2 weeks after I served her the papers, I came home one evening to pick up more clothes. I pulled into the driveway and saw 4 cars I didn't recognize. I walked inside and found Beverly sitting in the living room with 3 of her friends and her sister Brittany. They all turned to look at me when I came in. Brittany started talking first. She said I was being cruel and needed to think about what I was doing. She said Beverly made one mistake and didn't deserve to have her marriage destroyed over it. One of Beverly's friends, Michelle, said that Beverly had been through cancer and I should be more understanding. Another friend said that at least Beverly was honest about it instead of hiding it. The third friend said I was a coward for leaving instead of working through problems like an adult. I stood there and listened to all of them. When they finished, I asked if they would be okay with their husbands doing what Beverly did. Michelle said that was different. I asked how it was different. She said their relationships were different from ours. I told them they were welcome to leave my house now. Brittany said it was Beverly's house too. I told Brittany that the house was deeded to me before the marriage and Beverly had no legal claim to it. I said if they didn't leave I would call the police. Brittany called me an asshole. They all left. That night, Beverly came to my brother's house again. My brother didn't let her in. She called me from the driveway. I answered. She said she wanted to explain everything. She said she regretted what happened and wished she could take it back. I asked if she regretted doing it or regretted the consequences. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said she regretted hurting me. I told her that wasn't the same thing. I told her she knew exactly what she was doing and she did it anyway. I told her she had a week to find somewhere else to live or I would file for a court order to remove her. She started crying and said I was being heartless. I hung up. Beverly's sister Brittany called me the next day. She said Beverly was falling apart and I needed to talk to her. I said no. Brittany said I was abandoning my wife when she needed me most. I reminded Brittany that Beverly abandoned the marriage when she decided to sleep with her coworker. Brittany said that wasn't fair. I told her I didn't care about fair anymore. I hung up. 4 days later, on a Tuesday night, my brother woke me up at 1 a.m. He said there was someone at the door. I went downstairs and Beverly was standing there. She looked terrible. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red, and she was wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. She asked if we could talk. I said no. She said she had something important to tell me. I told her to say it from the porch. She said Mason meant nothing to her. She said she didn't even enjoy it. She said the whole thing was a mistake and she only did it because she was scared of dying. She said the cancer made her feel like she was running out of time and she panicked. She said she wasn't thinking clearly. I asked her how long she had been planning it. She said she didn't plan it. I asked her when she first decided she wanted to sleep with him. She didn't answer right away. Then she said she started thinking about it in August. That meant she had been planning this for almost 3 months before she told me. I asked her if anything happened between her and Mason before that night. She said no. I asked if they had been texting. She said they had talked at work and texted a few times but it was just friendly. I asked her to show me the texts. She said she deleted them because she didn't want me to get the wrong idea. I told her to leave. She said she loved me and wanted to fix this. I told her there was nothing to fix. She grabbed my arm and begged me not to give up on us. My brother came outside and told her she needed to go. She let go of my arm and walked back to her car. The next morning, my lawyer called. He said Beverly's lawyer contacted him and she was willing to negotiate the divorce terms. My lawyer said she was asking for half the retirement accounts and spousal support. I told him to reject the spousal support. He said she might have a case for it since she worked part-time for several years while raising Qley. I told him to do what he could. A week later, Beverly moved out of the house. She went to stay with Brittany. Qley stayed with me. He said he didn't want to be around his mother right now. Beverly called him every day but he rarely answered. When he did answer, the conversations were short. She asked him to visit and he said no. One Saturday afternoon in mid-November, Qley asked me what exactly his mother had done. I told him she had an affair. He asked if it was ongoing or just once. I told him she planned it for months and then spent a night with a guy. Qley didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said he didn't understand why she would do that. I told him I didn't understand either. Last week, something happened that changed everything. I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said you need to see this. I opened it and there was a link to a Dropbox folder. Inside the folder were screenshots of text messages between Beverly and Mason. Hundreds of them. The texts went back to July. They started friendly, talking about work projects and weekend plans. By August, they were flirting. She sent him photos of herself. He sent photos back. In September, they were making plans to meet up. She told him she was going to ask me for permission. He told her not to bother, to just do it. She said she felt like she should tell me something, but she didn't want me to stop her. He said I didn't need to know. There were texts from the week before the party. She told him she was excited. He asked if she was sure about this. She said she had been thinking about it for months and she was ready. He asked what she would tell me. She said she would say it was a one-time thing because of the cancer and I would get over it eventually. There were texts from the morning after. He asked how she was feeling. She said she didn't regret it, but she was worried about how I would react. He asked if I knew. She said yes, she told me before it happened. He said that was bold. She said she didn't want to sneak around. He said he respected that. There were texts from the week after, when I moved out. She told him I left and wouldn't talk to her. He asked if she expected that. She said no, she thought I would be upset, but she didn't think I would actually leave. She said we had been together for over 20 years and she didn't think I had it in me to walk away. The texts kept going through late October and into November. He told her he missed her. She said she missed him too. He asked if she wanted to meet up again. She said she couldn't because I filed for divorce and she needed to focus on fixing things. He asked if she regretted it. She said she regretted how it turned out, but not the night itself. I read through all of the texts twice. Then I forwarded the email to my lawyer. Then I forwarded it to Qley. Then I called my brother and told him what I found. He came over and I showed him the messages. He said I should send them to Beverly and ask her to explain. I said there was nothing to explain. Qley came home from school and went straight to his room. I knocked on his door an hour later. He told me to come in. He was sitting on his bed with his laptop open. He said he read the messages. He said he couldn't believe his mom would do that. He said he thought maybe she made one stupid mistake, but this was different. I sat down next to him and didn't say anything. He asked me who sent the email. I said I didn't know. He asked if I thought it was Mason. I said maybe. He asked why Mason would do that. I said maybe he got tired of being involved in our mess. Or maybe his conscience caught up with him. Or maybe he had a girlfriend who found out. I didn't know. Qley asked me if I was going to use the texts in the divorce. I said yes. He asked if that meant his mom would get less money. I said probably. He nodded and said good. Update 2: My lawyer filed the text messages as evidence in the divorce. Beverly's lawyer tried to get them excluded, saying they were obtained illegally. My lawyer argued that I received them from a third party and had no involvement in how they were obtained. The judge allowed them. Beverly called me after she found out about the texts. She asked where I got them. I said someone sent them to me. She asked who. I said I didn't know. She asked if I hacked her phone. I said no. She said someone must have hacked her phone or Mason's phone. I told her that wasn't my problem. She asked if I read all of them. I said yes. She was quiet. Then she said the text looked worse than the reality. I asked her how texts saying she didn't regret sleeping with him could look worse than reality. She said she was just trying to make herself feel better about what she did. I told her I didn't believe that. She started crying and said she never meant for any of this to happen. I hung up. 2 days later, Beverly showed up at my office. The receptionist called me and said my wife was in the lobby asking to see me. I told the receptionist to tell her I was busy. Beverly waited in the lobby for 2 hours. My boss walked by and recognized her. He came to my office and asked if everything was okay at home. I told him Beverly and I were getting divorced. He said he was sorry to hear that and if I needed anything to let him know. When I left work that evening, Beverly was sitting in her car in the parking lot. She got out when she saw me and walked over. She asked if we could talk. I said no. She said she just needed 5 minutes. I said no. She followed me to my car and stood in front of the driver's door. She said she wasn't moving until I talked to her. I took out my phone and called the security guard. Beverly moved away from the door. I got in my car and drove home. She followed me. When I pulled into the driveway, she parked behind me so I couldn't back out. I went inside and locked the door. She rang the doorbell repeatedly for 10 minutes. Then she sat on the front porch. I called my lawyer. He said to call the police if she wouldn't leave. I called the police. They came and told her she needed to leave. She left. The next week, I got a call from Qley's school. The principal said Beverly had shown up and asked to take Qley out of school for a doctor's appointment. The school had a note in the file from me that both parents needed to approve any early dismissals. The principal called me to confirm. I said there was no appointment and Beverly was not allowed to take Qley out of school. The principal said they would note that. Qley told me later that his mom had been texting him every day asking to meet up. He said he kept making excuses. She told him she missed him and wanted to explain everything. He said he didn't want to hear it. She asked him if I was turning him against her. He told her no, he made his own decisions. In early December, the divorce mediation happened. Beverly, her lawyer, me, and my lawyer sat in a conference room for 4 hours. Beverly's lawyer presented her requests: half of the retirement accounts, spousal support for 5 years, and split custody of Qley. My lawyer presented my position: she gets 30% of the retirement accounts that were accumulated during the marriage, no spousal support due to her infidelity, and primary custody stays with me since Qley is 16 and can choose. Beverly's lawyer argued that her medical situation and emotional state should be considered. My lawyer presented the text messages showing she had been planning the affair for months and showed no real remorse. Beverly's lawyer said the texts were taken out of context. The mediator asked Beverly to explain the context. She said she was confused and scared after the cancer. The mediator asked if that justified having an affair. She didn't answer. The mediation ended without an agreement. The mediator said we would have to go to court. My lawyer said that was fine and he was confident we would win. Beverly's lawyer asked if I would consider counseling before we went to court. I said no. On December 15th, I got another email from the same anonymous address. This one had a video file. I downloaded it and watched it. It was security camera footage from the hotel where Beverly and Mason stayed. The timestamp showed October 20th at 11:47 p.m. The video showed them walking into the hotel lobby holding hands. They went to the elevator. Another clip showed them in the hotel bar having drinks. Another clip showed them leaving together the next morning. I forwarded the video to my lawyer. He said it was good evidence but we already had enough. I asked why someone kept sending me this stuff. He said maybe Mason's wife found out and she was trying to help my case. Or maybe Mason was doing it out of guilt. Or maybe Beverly had another enemy. I said I didn't care who it was as long as it helped. That night, Qley asked me if I was ever going to forgive his mom. I asked him why he was asking. He said his mom told him I might change my mind after some time passed. I told him I wasn't going to change my mind. He asked if that meant we would never be a family again. I told him we would always be his parents but we wouldn't be married anymore. He said he understood. Christmas was difficult. Qley spent Christmas Eve with me and Christmas Day with Beverly at Brittany's house. He came back on December 26th and said his mom cried most of the day. He said his Aunt Brittany kept saying I was being stubborn and should give Beverly another chance. He said he told them both to stop talking about it. On January 2nd, Beverly sent me a long email. She said she had been thinking about everything and she realized she had a problem. She said the cancer had affected her more than she admitted and she made terrible choices because of it. She said she wasn't asking me to take her back but she wanted me to know she was sorry. She said she would agree to whatever divorce terms I wanted if I would just stop being angry at her. I didn't respond to the email. My lawyer said the court date was set for February 10th. He said based on the evidence, I would likely get everything I asked for. He said Beverly's lawyer might try to settle before the court date to avoid the embarrassment of having everything presented in court. I told him to let me know if they made an offer. On January 15th, I found out who had been sending the emails. A man named Tom showed up at my house. He said he was Mason's brother-in-law. He said his sister was married to Mason and she found text messages between Mason and Beverly in December. He said his sister was devastated and filed for divorce. He said she asked him to send me the evidence because she wanted me to know the whole truth. I asked him why his sister didn't send the evidence herself. He said she was too upset to deal with any of it directly. I asked him if he had more evidence. He said no, that was everything they found. I thanked him for coming. He said he was sorry this happened to me and to his sister. He left. I told Qley about Tom's visit. He asked if that meant Mason's wife divorced him too. I said it sounded like it. Qley said good, they both deserved it. Last week, Beverly's lawyer called my lawyer and said they wanted to settle. They offered to accept 25% of the retirement accounts, no spousal support, and custody with Qley's preference. My lawyer said we should take it. I agreed. The settlement papers were drawn up and signed on January 25th. The divorce will be final in March after the 1-year separation period ends. Beverly sent me one last text after she signed the papers. She said she hoped I would be happy and she was sorry for everything. I didn't respond. Update 3: The divorce was finalized on March 8th. Beverly signed the papers without any additional drama. She moved into an apartment about 20 minutes away from the house. Qley stays with me full-time and visits her every other weekend. He's civil with her but their relationship is not the same. He told me last week that he doesn't trust her anymore and probably never will again. Beverly has tried a few times to reach out to me about things unrelated to Qley. She texted me in late March asking if I wanted to split the cost of Qley's car insurance since he was getting his license soon. I told her to coordinate with my lawyer for any financial matters. She asked if we could just handle it between us like adults. I didn't respond. She sent the request through her lawyer. In April, I ran into Beverly at Qley's school during a parent event. She tried to make small talk. She asked how I was doing and if work was going well. I answered briefly and walked away. Later that night she texted me saying it didn't have to be this way and we could at least be friendly for Qley's sake. I told her we were not friends and would never be friends. I said I would be polite in front of Qley but that was the extent of our interaction. She didn't respond. Qley's birthday was in May. He wanted a party at the house with his friends. I asked him if he wanted to invite his mom. He said no. I told him it was his choice. He said he didn't want her there because she would make it awkward. His birthday came and went without her. She sent him a card and a gift card. He thanked her over text. In June, I started seeing someone. Her name is Lori and she works in the finance department at my company. We had coffee a few times and then dinner. She knows about the divorce and the situation with Beverly. She said her previous relationship ended because her boyfriend cheated, so she understood what I went through. We've been taking things slowly. I told Qley about Lori after we had been seeing each other for about 6 weeks. He asked if I was serious about her. I said I didn't know yet but I liked spending time with her. He said he was fine with it as long as I was happy. He met her in July at a casual dinner. They got along well. Beverly found out about Lori in August. Qley mentioned it during one of his weekend visits and Beverly called me immediately. She asked if I was dating someone. I said yes. She asked how long it had been going on. I told her that wasn't her business. She said she couldn't believe I moved on so quickly. I reminded her that we had been separated for almost a year. She said that wasn't the same as the divorce being final. I hung up. A few days later, I got a message from Beverly on social media. She said she saw Lori's profile and wanted to warn me that Lori was just using me for money. I blocked her. She tried to message me from a different account. I blocked that too. She sent an email saying I was making a mistake and Lori wasn't who I thought she was. I deleted the email without reading the whole thing. In September, Beverly showed up at my house unannounced. Qley was at a friend's house and I was home alone. She rang the doorbell and I answered. She said she needed to talk to me about something important regarding Qley. I asked what it was. She said she thought Qley needed to spend more time with her and maybe we should reconsider the custody arrangement. I told her if she wanted to change custody, she could take it up with her lawyer. She said she didn't want to go through lawyers for everything. I told her that was too bad. I closed the door. Qley graduated from high school in June of this year. Both Beverly and I attended the ceremony. We sat in different sections. Afterward, there was a small reception at the school. Beverly tried to take photos with Qley and me together. Qley said no. She looked hurt but didn't push it. Qley is starting college in a few weeks. He chose a school about 3 hours away. He'll be living in the dorms. Beverly wanted to drive up with him to help him move in. Qley told her no and said I was taking him. She asked if she could at least come visit on move-in day. Qley said she could come the second day after everything was set up. Last week, Beverly texted me asking if we could meet up for coffee to discuss Qley's transition to college. I told her there was nothing to discuss. She said she wanted to make sure we were on the same page about supporting him. I said we could communicate through email if needed. She said I was being difficult. I didn't respond. Lori and I are still together. We've been dating for over a year now. She gets along well with Qley. I haven't introduced her to any of Beverly's side of the family and I don't plan to. Qley mentioned once that his Aunt Brittany asked about her and he just said she was nice. Brittany apparently told him I was replacing his mother. He told Brittany that wasn't true and to mind her own business. My relationship with Beverly is limited to logistics about Qley. We exchange brief emails about school costs, medical insurance, and his schedule. That's it. I have no interest in being friends with her or having any kind of relationship beyond what's necessary for Qley. She made her choice and I made mine. Qley is doing well despite everything. He's excited about college and has a good group of friends. He sees Beverly when he chooses to, which is not often. He told me recently that he doesn't hate her but he doesn't want to be around her much. He said what she did changed how he sees her and he doesn't think that will change. I'm in a better place now than I was a year ago. The anger has faded but it's been replaced by nothing. I don't think about Beverly unless I have to. I don't wonder what she's doing or who she's with. I don't care. Lori has been good for me and we're building something that feels right. I'm focused on my life now, on Qley, on work, on the future. Beverly is just someone I used to know. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My step-nephew trashed my house during babysitting and demanded I forgive $5,000 in damages because we are family. I, 35F, am a single mom with twin daughters Lucy and Qley, 7F. 3 years ago I lost my husband Michael in a car accident, and since then I've been raising our girls alone while running my own business. Last month I had an important overnight business trip that I absolutely couldn't miss. My regular babysitter canceled last minute due to some personal emergency, and I was completely stuck. I tried calling all my friends but no one was available on such short notice, especially for an overnight stay. I called my dad Richard to see if he could watch the girls, but he already had plans with his friends. While I was on the phone with him, my step-nephew Caleb, 16M, apparently overheard our conversation and offered to babysit. Caleb is my dad's new wife Vanessa's son. My dad married Vanessa about 18 months ago, but I don't really know either of them very well. I was already an adult with my own family when they entered my dad's life, so we've only had a formal, civil relationship. I was honestly skeptical about letting Caleb watch my girls. The twins are pretty shy and introverted by nature, so they're not typically difficult to look after, but I still wasn't sure about trusting someone I barely knew. But I was desperate and running out of options. Caleb seemed earnest on the phone, offering to do it for free, and my dad vouched for him, so I reluctantly agreed. Before leaving, I wrote down detailed instructions, emergency contacts, and the girls' schedule. I made sure Caleb had everything he needed and told him to call me if anything came up. I left early in the morning for my business meeting, planning to return the following afternoon. My meeting went well, but I managed to wrap things up earlier than expected. I texted Caleb to let him know I'd be home by late morning instead of afternoon. He just replied with a thumbs up emoji. When I pulled into my driveway the next day around 11 a.m., Caleb rushed out the front door before I could even get out of my car. He practically threw my house keys at me, mumbled something about having to go, and took off running down the street. I immediately knew something was wrong. As soon as I opened my front door, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My house was completely trashed. The living room furniture was all pushed against the walls, there were plastic cups and empty alcohol bottles everywhere, food smashed into my carpet, and stains all over my couch. The wallpaper in the hallway was scuffed and torn in places. Several expensive decorative items that I'd collected over the years were broken and had been carelessly swept into a corner. I ran to check on my daughters and found them in their bedroom playing with their toys. They seemed fine but immediately told me what happened. Caleb had locked them in their bedroom for most of the night, only opening the door to give them dinner and snacks. He'd given them an iPad to keep them occupied and told them to stay quiet. They said there were a lot of people in the house making noise, and they could hear loud music and shouting. They hadn't been hurt, but they'd basically been ignored and confined to their room while Caleb threw a party in my house. I was absolutely furious. Not only had Caleb endangered my children by locking them in a room and ignoring them while he partied with strangers in my house, but he'd also caused extensive damage to my property. I took pictures of everything and immediately called my dad. He was just as angry as I was when I told him what happened. While I was on the phone with him, he confronted Caleb, who initially tried to deny everything. But the evidence was overwhelming, the state of my house and my daughter's account of what happened. I calculated that repairs and replacements would cost around $5,000, and I told my dad that Caleb needed to pay for the damages. My dad completely agreed and said Caleb would have to use his savings and allowance to pay me back, and Vanessa would cover whatever Caleb couldn't afford. He said this was the only way to teach Caleb that his actions have consequences. I thought that was the end of it, but over the next few days, Vanessa and Caleb started bombarding me with calls and texts. They claimed I was being heartless and that $5,000 was way too much money. They kept saying that as family, we should just forgive and forget. The thing is, I don't really consider them my family, we barely know each other. And even if they were my close family, what Caleb did was completely unacceptable. They've also been giving my dad a hard time, creating tension in his marriage. Vanessa keeps saying that Caleb is just a teenager who made a mistake and that making him pay such a large amount is cruel. But I don't think I'm being unreasonable. Caleb showed complete disregard for my children's safety and my property. He needs to understand that actions have consequences. I could afford to fix everything myself, but it's about the principle. Caleb chose to throw a party in my house without permission while he was supposed to be watching my children. He endangered my kids and damaged my property. I believe he should be held accountable. So, AITA for demanding my step-nephew pay for the damages he caused? Edit. Since a lot of people are asking why I couldn't find anyone else to watch my kids, I tried everyone I could think of. My friends all had plans since it was a weekend, and I couldn't expect them to drop everything for me. My mom lives out of state. I don't have a husband anymore since Michael passed away, and his family hasn't kept in touch. Caleb had always seemed like a responsible kid from the limited interactions we'd had, so I didn't expect anything like this to happen. I've definitely learned my lesson. Update 1. It's been a week since I posted, and things have gotten worse. Vanessa and Caleb have been relentlessly texting and calling me, trying to guilt-trip me into dropping the whole thing. They've also been making my dad's life miserable. I decided to check in with my dad yesterday to see how he was handling everything. He looked completely exhausted when I saw him. He told me that for the past week, Vanessa and Caleb have been fighting with him nonstop. Every moment he spends at home is filled with arguments, screaming, and emotional manipulation. They've taken to accusing him of always siding with me over them, saying that he prioritizes me and never cares enough about his new family. This makes absolutely no sense to me. I was already an adult living independently with my own family when my dad met Vanessa. I rarely even ask my dad for help, and we only see each other for lunch or dinner maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I've always been financially independent and never relied on him for support as an adult. My dad said they're creating this false narrative where I'm somehow the favored child who gets all his attention, when in reality, they're the ones who live with him and spend every day with him. They're twisting the situation to make themselves the victim so they don't have to take responsibility for what Caleb did. The tension at my dad's house has gotten so bad that he's been sleeping in the guest room for the past few days. When he told me this, I felt terrible. I even offered to just drop the whole thing and forget about the money. I told him I could pay for the damages myself if it would make things easier for him. I hated seeing him caught in the middle like this. But my dad insisted that wouldn't solve the real problem. He said that letting Caleb off the hook would only teach him that he can escape consequences by making enough of a fuss. He believes Caleb needs to learn accountability, and giving in now would be doing him a disservice in the long run. I know my dad is right, but I'm worried about him. After his divorce from my mom when I was 6, he's always wanted to make his second marriage work. He's not usually confrontational and prefers to resolve conflicts calmly and rationally. But Vanessa and Caleb are the opposite. They use emotional outbursts and verbal attacks to get their way. The craziest part is that it's only $5,000. I know that's not a small amount of money, but it's not worth destroying a marriage over. If I were in Vanessa's position, I would just pay the money to fix the damage my son caused, especially since he was clearly in the wrong. The fact that they're willing to put my dad through all this stress rather than take responsibility is really revealing about their character. If this continues for much longer, I might suggest to my dad that he speak to a lawyer. I don't want to interfere in his marriage, but I can see that Vanessa and Caleb's behavior is taking a serious toll on him. They don't seem to value him or respect him, and they're willing to make his life miserable just to avoid accountability. I feel partly responsible since this whole situation started because of my decision to let Caleb babysit. But at the same time, I know this isn't really about the money or the damage to my house anymore. It's about Vanessa and Caleb's unwillingness to acknowledge that what they did was wrong and their determination to blame everyone else instead of taking responsibility. For now, I'm trying to be there for my dad and support him however I can. I've told him he's welcome to come stay with me and the girls if he needs a break from the constant fighting at home. I hope Vanessa and Caleb eventually realize how unreasonable they're being, but based on their behavior so far, I'm not optimistic. I never expected a babysitting incident to reveal so much about their characters or to cause such a rift in my dad's marriage. But maybe this was all going to come out eventually, and this situation just accelerated the process. Update 2. It's been 4 days since my last update. I've been checking in with my dad regularly because I knew he was having a hard time dealing with Vanessa and Caleb. He kept telling me that things were improving and that they were starting to have more civil conversations, so I thought maybe they were finally working things out. But today, Dad showed up at my doorstep with several bags. My daughters were thrilled to see their grandpa, of course, but I could tell something was seriously wrong. He looked completely drained, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated posture that I'd never seen before. After the girls went to bed, we sat down with some coffee and he finally opened up about what happened. Apparently, things had seemed calmer for a couple of days, and he thought they were making progress. But today, he brought up the subject of paying me back for the damages, suggesting they could work out a payment plan to make it more manageable. That's when everything exploded again. Caleb immediately started screaming at him, saying he couldn't believe my dad was still siding with me over his real family. When my dad tried to defend himself by pointing out that I'm his daughter and therefore also his family, both Caleb and Vanessa went ballistic. They started hurling insults not just at him, but also at me and even at my mom, who they've never even met. The worst part came when they accused my dad of being selfish and stingy with money. This is rich coming from them since my dad pays for almost everything in their household. Vanessa has a decent job but contributes very little financially, preferring to keep her money separate while my dad covers most of their expenses. When my dad pointed this out in his defense, they became even more hostile. The verbal abuse got so bad that my dad finally decided he'd had enough. He packed his essential belongings and left. He said he couldn't stay in a house where he was treated with such disrespect, and he's now considering filing for divorce. Their behavior today made him realize that there's no salvaging this relationship. I assured my dad that he could stay with us for as long as he needs. The girls love having their grandpa around, and I have plenty of space. I also told him I would fully support whatever decision he makes regarding his marriage, and if he needs help finding a good divorce lawyer, I'd be happy to assist. Despite everything, my dad seemed almost relieved. He admitted that there had been red flags in his relationship with Vanessa from the beginning, but he had ignored them because he wanted so badly to make this marriage work. This situation with Caleb and my house was the wake-up call he needed to see Vanessa and Caleb's true colors. At this point, I don't even care about getting the $5,000 back. I've already paid to repair everything myself. My only concern now is my dad's well-being and helping him move forward. It's heartbreaking to see him go through this, but I think it's better for him to remove himself from such a toxic environment. I just can't believe Vanessa and Caleb would jeopardize their relationship with my dad over $5,000 that they rightfully owe. It shows where their priorities lie, and unfortunately, my dad's happiness isn't one of them. He deserves better than to be married to someone who treats him with such contempt and disrespect. For now, we're taking things one day at a time. My dad is still processing everything that happened, but I think he made the right choice by leaving. Some relationships simply aren't worth saving, especially when there's such a fundamental lack of respect. Update 3. It's been nearly 2 months since my last update. My dad has been living with me and the twins this whole time, and we've settled into a comfortable routine. He's been working from home, which means he can help with school drop-offs and pickups, and he's spending lots of quality time with his granddaughters. The girls absolutely love having their grandpa around full-time, and they've been constantly by his side whenever they're not at school. For me, it's been nice having another adult in the house. We've been reminiscing about my childhood, and he's been sharing stories about when I was the twins' age. It's also been a huge help having someone else to share the parenting responsibilities with, even if it's just temporarily. 2 weeks after moving in with us, my dad finally contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce. As expected, Vanessa tried to get back in touch with him as soon as she was served with the papers. But even then, she didn't apologize or admit any wrongdoing. Instead, she accused my dad of overreacting and suggested they try marriage counseling. She also claimed that I had manipulated him into filing for divorce, as if he couldn't make decisions for himself. My dad remained firm in his decision. He told her that he couldn't stay in a relationship where there was no mutual respect. With his lawyer's help, he managed to get Vanessa and Caleb to move out of his house. The house was purchased before their marriage and is solely in his name, so legally they had no right to stay there. The divorce proceedings are currently underway. The main issue is that Vanessa is demanding an unreasonable amount of alimony. But since they don't have many joint assets and were only married for a short time, My dad's lawyer is confident they'll reach a reasonable settlement soon. The last time my dad saw Vanessa and Caleb was when they returned his house keys a few weeks ago. Even then, they couldn't resist making nasty comments. They told him he was making a huge mistake and that he would regret this decision for the rest of his life. They also directed some hateful comments toward me, blaming me for everything that happened. But my dad didn't let their words affect him. Later, he told me that he feels happier and more at peace now than he has in years. He said that the incident with Caleb and my house helped him see the truth about his marriage. There had been warning signs all along, but he had chosen to ignore them because he wanted so badly for the relationship to work. Looking back, it's incredible how one event can change everything. If Caleb hadn't offered to babysit that day, or if he'd actually been responsible instead of throwing a party, my dad might still be stuck in an unhappy marriage with people who didn't truly value or respect him. While the whole situation has been difficult, I think it ultimately led to a better outcome for everyone in our family. My dad is no longer in a toxic relationship, the girls get to spend more time with their grandfather, and I have support that I didn't have before. Even though we went through a rough patch, we've come out stronger on the other side. As for Vanessa and Caleb, I don't wish them any ill will, but I also don't want them in our lives anymore. They showed their true colors throughout this ordeal, and I don't think they deserve a place in our family. Some people simply aren't worth keeping around, no matter what relation they claim to be. At the end of the day, what matters most is that my dad, my daughters, and I are happy and at peace. The rest is just noise.